Hi, I'm Sam Slater from FundCalibre, and I'm here today with James Douglas, co-manager of Polar Capital Global Healthcare Trust. Hi, James.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Terrific.
Thanks for making the time for this.
You're welcome.
The first question I have is, how would you explain your job to somebody outside of financial services?
Well, if you're fortunate enough to have some spare money that you'd like to invest, but you don't necessarily have the expertise to do it yourself, you might seek independent financial advice. That independent advice might lead you to invest your money in stocks and shares, for example, and that's what we do here at Polar Capital. We use our experience and expertise to invest other people's money in stocks and shares with the aim of trying to deliver returns to our investors that are superior to those that one would get from leaving the money in a bank, for example.
And your particular portfolio is split into two segments. There's about 90% in growth companies and about 10% in innovation. Why have you chosen this split, and what kind of company goes into each?
Well, the growth portfolio consists of companies with market capitalizations greater than $5 billion at the time of investment. And these tend to be well-established, cash-generative blue-chip companies with relatively low risk profiles. Mm-hmm. By contrast, the innovation portfolio are companies with market capitalizations less than $5 billion at the time of investment, and therefore carry very different risk-reward profiles. Mm-hmm. And we believe that adopting a portfolio approach, particularly in the innovation section, is a sensible way of managing the high risk-reward profiles often seen with those smaller companies. It is worth noting that both segments of the trust, growth and innovation, can invest in companies across the healthcare ecosystem, whether it be drugs, devices, tools, or services or platform technologies.
Okay, and what's the most interesting company that you've met in the past year, or what's the most interesting product or services that you've come across?
Well, we're extremely fortunate in the job that we do here, in that we get to meet a broad range of very interesting companies. Take Novartis, for example, a Swiss pharma major, and a company that's interesting for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's making interesting business decisions by focusing on innovative therapies, by divesting and spinning out businesses outside of what it believes to be its core competence, and that is one of developing differentiated medicines. But secondly, the company is also making significant investments in highly innovative and disruptive technologies like gene therapy. Okay. And then finally, Novartis is also a very heavy investor in data analytics and technology that can really drive efficiencies across the organisation.
Okay. And the fund has quite a large allocation to US companies. With the presidential election next year, how much of an impact could candidate promises around healthcare and drug pricing, etc., have an influence on the fund?
Yeah, that's a great question. So risk management is a central part of our investment process here at Polar, and politics in the US is an area where we have a high level of vigilance, given that the affordability of healthcare is high on the list of priorities, not just for US citizens, but also for the political parties. And there are a wide variety of topics, but the two areas that appear to garner the most attention are those of drug pricing and something called Medicare for all. So with regards to drug pricing, the administration is already looking at ways to reduce out-of-pocket expenses for the US citizens, with a specific focus on US seniors and those on low incomes. Right. But regardless of that, we believe that those companies that can develop innovative and differentiated therapies can still be commercially successful in the US. In terms of Medicare for all, this is essentially a single-payer government-run healthcare system. They're trying to expand that to the broader population. And we can see the political appeal, but it feels unlikely to become a reality in the near term, with the implementing costs being one of the single biggest barriers.
The trust itself has what's called a finite life, so it technically comes to an end in 2025, but there is an option to extend that if shareholders vote in favour of it at an AGM. Can you explain to our listeners what a finite life trust is and why you might have chosen to have this for this trust, please?
Yeah, absolutely. It was felt that roughly every 7 years, investors should be given the opportunity to get their money back at net asset value.
Okay.
At the end of the first 7-year period in 2017, investors were given the option to carry on as well as taking cash. And the majority of investors decided to carry on being invested in the trust and voted for a second term that runs to March 2025. So every 7 years, investors can decide on their investment, but also review how the trust has performed and hear updated investment thoughts from the fund managers. Effectively, it provides a safety valve or a checkpoint, if you like, for investors, as well as acting as a discount control mechanism.
And what's the biggest long-term trend in healthcare and biotech?
Well, healthcare is such a broad church that pinning down a single long-term trend is pretty difficult. But if pushed, however, I point to the marriage between healthcare and technology as being the single biggest long-term trend. Healthcare companies are investing in and are already using technologies to change the way that healthcare is being managed, delivered and paid for. Because ultimately, all global healthcare systems are facing the same challenge. How can we deliver more healthcare to more people for less money?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
If you'd like to listen to more of our podcasts, please subscribe to FundCalibre.